Just out of curiosity, are we great yet? Because my husband's been in the oil field for 18 years and just got laid off. Do we have all those awesome paying jobs yet? Because he's going to need one of those real quick.
Breaking news as ConocoPhillips announces mass firing of 25% or more of their staff as another mega player in the oil industry takes a heavy hit. Now, we're going to break down exactly what happened at ConocoPhillips, and we're going to go over the updated list of the mass oil layoffs that have just happened in 2025, because it looks like we have another trend in mass layoffs. Now, our second segment is going to be on the JOLTS report that came out today. And for the first time since 2021, we have more people that are unemployed than we do job openings, something we warned you about on our Wednesday morning video. Is this the last data point that's needed to finally call for an official recession, or is there more data revisions on the way? Now, we're going to end this video talking about gold and silver new highs and why it's so important for America to save their money. And having said that, you guys, happy Wednesday and welcome back to Real Estate Mindset. You guys already know this video is going to be absolutely bonkers.
The truth about job layoffs from a former head of finance. So here's the thing, the job market is absolutely atrocious, and it has been like that for the last 2 years or so. And the reason being, which no one is talking about, is because of variable rate debt. So during the pandemic, we all remember that interest rates were at a record low. And so many people were getting their hands on very affordable money. Not only was that the case with mortgages, but also on the corporate level. So a lot of companies were getting their hands on cash at variable interest rates that were highly, highly favorable. And the thing with variable rate debt is that the rate is going to be very attractive when they onboard you, but then it's going to adjust to the market. So then we saw in the years since that interest rates were sky high, record high. Now the companies are on the hook for paying back that money.
Mitch, after years of quantitative tightening and whipsawing and whiplashing corporate America, it looks like the labor market is finally going into recession. And having said that, how are you this evening? And also, thank you for joining us this Wednesday evening. I appreciate your time, Mitch.
It's interesting that we've been jumping up and down really for about 10 months now, stating very clearly what you can see right in front of you, which is the retail closing, industrial having issues, single family supplies, in terms of product available for buy on the new housing going up. These are all signs of a recession. The problem with what you're told in the press is that it's lagging. We are in a recession. We have been in a recession. And for purposes of promoting nonsense, the press refuses to pick up on it. But now the world is starting to see what the problems are, and it's going to be interesting.
Well, speaking about the problems that the world is going to see, let's jump right into this article. Hot off the press from Zero Hedge, coming out around noon today, ConocoPhillips to slash up to 25% of its workforce. ConocoPhillips, one of the largest E&P companies in the U.S., told employees earlier that it plans to reduce its overall workforce by around 25% amid increased concerns about OPEC supply, among other things. At least that's what they're mentioning. A company spokesperson confirmed with Reuters that ConocoPhillips will cut its workforce by 20 to 25%. At the end of 2024, the company employed 11,800 people globally. A 25% reduction would put nearly 3,000 jobs at risk. Employees received an email this morning containing a video message from the CEO detailing the plans. The company is set to hold a town hall meeting on Thursday or tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Central, sources said. ConocoPhillips provided no details on the reasoning behind the upcoming cuts. However, JOLTS data released earlier today suggested that a 25 basis point interest rate cut September 17th may be justified given the continued deterioration in the labor market. And we'll go over that here in a second. But before I do, I wanted to look at this year's oil layoffs. And these are some of the bigger companies. So remember, the most recent round was from BP earlier in August. They laid off 6,200 of their employees. At the end of July, Petronet and Chevron both announced layoffs, with Petronet LNG announcing 25% of its staff being cut. Chevron, again, 3 rounds from Chevron for about 1,700 people. Royal Dutch Shell at the beginning of July laid off 9,000 people. Petronas right here, you guys, at the beginning of June laid off 5,000 people. And again, before that, one day before that, 10%. Here's Chevron, another 800. Pemex, 3,000. Chevron, Harbor Energy, Chevron, NIS laying off 10% of its staff. Back on April 25th of this year, laying off 13,500 of their staff. And look at more Chevron, APA. We have Shell right here. Big one from Chevron in February of this year, laying off 9,000 of their employees. Also big one in January from BP right here, laying off 7,700. Also BP again, January 16th, laying off 4,700, and another 8,000 on January 16th as well. Lots of oil company layoffs. Mitch, are the recent round of oil layoffs more about OPEC's demand and potential to increase production, or is it more about the U.S. economy?
It's both. So the companies that you're referring to, i.e. Conoco, they're explorers and refiners by acquisition. So they bought refinery plants. Well, if demand in oil goes down because the economy is temporarily, call it whatever you want, going down, then yes, that is a ramification. So it really is both. There's such a thing as peak oil, what they believe is the case where we've reached max capacity to drill in the United States. I don't know if that's true or not, but there is that theory that's out there. Well, if it's true, until they find another large basin somewhere to drill from, be it federal lands, what have you, assuming it's true temporarily, then they don't have the need for those employees, plus the fact that the economy is clearly shrinking in terms of the job growth, which means that the people won't have money to spend, and therefore they won't have money to go and travel, and therefore fuel will not be as in great demand.
Do you think any part of that lack of demand for fuel has anything to do with the recent explosion in electric vehicles?
No, not at all.
No.
You need the electric vehicles from a standpoint of having a diversification of draw on energy. Nothing wrong with electric, but one must understand where are the generators living from that create the electric. Well, the answer is coal. The answer is diesel. Not that you want to use diesel, but people still do. So the point of the matter is you need all these elements working together to create, let's call it an economy of fuel. Electric can't do it on its own. Electric is generated with petroleum. So the demand is there. The problem is that the physical demand from mom and pop, people's ability to travel is shrinking. Stores are shrinking. Industrial base is shrinking. That's what's called a recession. Recession hits, things shrink. That's just the way that it works. That's the economy. So I wouldn't read any more into it. Will those jobs eventually come back? Yeah, when demand comes up, then the jobs come back because this is fuel production and the world runs on petrol.
Yes, sir. And Mitch, speaking of shrinking and the economy, let's look at this morning's JOLTS report and talk about why it may be another economic recession signal. Coming out from Zero Hedge a couple hours ago, titled "Labor Market Crosses Critical Threshold for the First Time Since 2021, There Are More Unemployed Than There Are Job Openings." Well, moments ago, the BLS reported that in July, the number of job openings tumbled by another 176,000 from a downward revised already 7.357 million to all the way down from there 7.181 million. Again, the data is propaganda. The data, they keep revising the data. What does the data even matter at this point? Just go to the grocery store. What do you see out there? Which not only came in far below the median consensus estimate of 7.38 million openings and below 28 estimates from the 29 economists polled by Bloomberg, but also the second lowest going back to the COVID crash. You guys see that the trajectory, like we mentioned this morning, of job openings is trending downward, not upward. And that's a pretty sharp trend downward for job openings. And remember, you guys, 1 million to 1.5 million people get laid off per month. So the job openings are really important to absorb the 1.5 million people that lose their job every month. Regular readers will surely recall what other notable event took place in September 2024, which needed a sharp deterioration in the jobs market as validation. Yes, that's when the apolitical Fed unexpectedly cut a jumbo 50 basis points just 2 months before the election, and the collapsing labor market served as a cover, just as it does again right now. Going back to today's report, according to the BLS, the number of job openings decreased primarily in healthcare and social assistance, arts, entertainment, and recreation, and mining and logging. In the context of the broader jobs report, it appears that after 4 years of the U.S. labor market dodging the bullet, luck may have run out, because whereas in June, the labor market was still supply constrained when there was 342,000 more openings than jobs in the U.S., in July, we are finally back to demand constrained with 55,000 fewer job openings than unemployed workers for the first negative print this series since April of 2021. As discussed previously, the U.S. never entered a recession in the period when there were more job openings than unemployed workers. Interesting. So we've never went into recession where there were more job openings than unemployed, and now that has changed. In July, the number of job openings to unemployed finally dropped back under 1.0. You guys see that right here. Mitch, the article pointed out we've never got into recession when openings exceeded unemployed. Is this the big sign that we needed that suggests that we are already in recession? Is this the data? Is this a canary in the mine?
No, it's lagging like everything else. The truth of the matter is, when you realize that they've lost, give or take, just short of 6,000 restaurants in California, over 5,300 retail closings so far this year, the indicators and all this, what they're bringing up now, is simply regurgitated, delayed facts. It has no bearing on what's going to happen in the future other than it's going to get worse. That's the way that it works. That's the problem with lagging indicators. That's the problem with lagging data. And as we've said, you can drive around your neighborhood and simply count the amount of retail that is closing. Look at the retail that's in trouble. Go in front of an ice cream store, sit there and watch it for 15 minutes. If nobody's going in, the ice cream store's got problems. Go to a donut store, same thing. You can see it if you bother to look. And this is what all these press entities don't do. They wait for data. That's lagging. That's of no value to anybody. You want to get ahead of the market? Watch, look. That's how you get there.
Yeah, stay disciplined, learn, and save. And speaking of saving, let's go into that segment of this video now, starting with gold, which ended today record high, I believe, at 3,000. Here it is, 3,635. This is the futures, down about 0.5%. But this son of a gun ending again today, $3,635 an ounce. That means over the last year, gold is up 42%. And in 3 months, 7.13%. And it's not just gold. Obviously, you guys know that I first started investing in silver on a live video on Real Estate Mindset at $29 an ounce. Right now, it ended at $42. You guys can see that right now. Again, this is the futures, down about 1% on the futures, but ending at $42, absolutely spectacular. Now, silver's up, you guys, more than gold, up 1 year, 42.86%, and over 3 months, 16.38%. Metals are doing really well right now. Why you need to save more cash right now, even if a Fed rate cut makes your money earn less. It's kind of like, man, that statement is such a loaded statement. I mean, talk about a narrative. Anyways, with the Federal Reserve interest rate cut on the horizon, and that's probably going to happen in September, the allure of easy, predictable yields from cash may be fading. Uncertainties lurk in the economy should prompt people to keep building their savings, financial advisors say. You guys want to save right now while you still can, and you want to take advantage of any potential assets decreasing in price, and that's one of the reasons why it's so important. It's important to build an easy-to-tap rainy day reserves, particularly at a time when it's taking longer for many unemployed people to find work, and again, rainy day funds, right? If anything happens, it's equally important to avoid going overboard, experts say, and to remember that cash yields alone aren't going to cut it in the long run. As people determine the best ways to put their money to use, deciding how deep to stay in cash will be a key consideration going forward, they note. Consumer pessimism about the job market also grew in August. Meanwhile, worker confidence about their employers' immediate future hovered near a record low in August, according to a running index by the job search platform Glassdoor. It's been roughly 9 months since the Fed completed its first string of reductions to its benchmark interest rate. Before those 3 cuts, the central bank raised its rate to an approximate 2-decade high in order to fight stubbornly elevated inflation. And this is saying, how much money should you save in cash right now? America's personal savings rate, the share of depositable income that people save after spending the money and paying taxes, was 4.4% in July, unchanged from the previous month. And that is super low, you guys. The question is how much to keep in savings? This is suggesting 3 months worth of expenses to 6 months or more. And that will depend on a person's expenses, how many members of their household are working, and how difficult they think it would be to find a new job. Mitch, can you explain to the viewers why saving money is so important? And does saving our money in metals count as liquidity?
All I have to say about Market Watch is these are the same morons that brought you the 60-40 portfolio. It's complete nonsense. The math never worked. If you've got excess cash, and not everybody does because not everybody's in that boat, but if you've got excess cash in the bank, you've got to think this through for a minute. You can't read what the contingent liabilities of that bank is. You don't know what other bank your bank is sleeping with. You don't know what the cross-collateralized loan obligations are of your bank because you can't find it on their balance sheet. You probably don't realize that give or take 600 banks in the United States are on watch. The point of the matter is there's problems everywhere. If you've got excess cash in the bank, you're much better off. Why would you put it in a savings account that may only earn you 3% interest when you can make that, give or take, let's say in a month, even though silver is rocketing? And I want to take that up one step just for a second. On average, the gold-silver ratio is 15-1. Take 3,600, divide it by 15, you've got roughly $240 an ounce. Gold right now is at 42. See the picture? Gold is going to continue to move because the market in the United States and globally is about to suffer large losses. That's just what's going to happen. There's going to be devaluation in the stock market. There's going to be massive devaluation in the bonds. It's one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing. But the point of the matter is saving your money in cash, you do as you wish, but it's not going to make you money. It's going to cost you money. When inflation is greater than the rate of return that you can get in the bank, best do not keep the money in the bank because you're losing your purchasing power by the day. And then the risks in the economy add on to that problem such that if you're sitting on cash and you can afford to sit on cash, best do not be sitting on cash and it's in precious metals or a business that is bought and paid for or real estate that is bought and paid for. Stay away from debt.
You know, Mitch, speaking of real estate that's bought and paid for, let's finish out this video by going into our conclusion, which is me pleading with you guys to please join us in our fight to abolish property taxes. Mitch is doing an amicus brief. If you guys are in the position to help and sign off on an amicus brief, please reach out to us. His email's in the description. Call him, email him. We need your help. But I want to show you guys first why we need your help so much. And it's in large part because of the bonds that we've been telling you guys about, specifically ISD bond debt. And what you guys are looking at here is the entire state of Texas. And what Mitch and I try to do is we try to identify senior citizen housing or senior citizen homeowners. And the way that we did that is we're only looking at properties in the entire state of Texas that are paid off free and clear. So they don't have a mortgage and they're owner occupied and they're under 300,000. Okay, so again, owner occupied, paid off free and clear, and the property is valued at under 300,000 for the entire state of Texas. Now that yielded me 2.2 million properties. You guys can see that here on the upper right. Now out of those 2.2 million properties, okay, 243,765 of them, or over 11% of all of those properties, are tax delinquent. And that is what's at stake. And just to show you guys that this is happening outside of Texas as well, I pulled up Cleveland, Ohio. And what I did here is we're looking at only the properties that are paid off free and clear and owner occupied. So I set no limit on the actual price. So again, paid off free and clear, owner occupied in Cleveland, Ohio. There's 99,000 total properties, of which 11,384, or over 11%, are delinquent on their property taxes. Which brings us to the conclusion. Again, this is 6 points to the amicus brief that Mitch is creating that he needs your help signing. So if you're in law, an accountant, in business, anything of that nature, please reach out once again. Mitch, can you read this, please? These 6 points to the Supreme Court issues and why it affects every property owner in Texas.
3 days ago, I was working on a document called The Truth of Constitutional Behavior. And that was the forerunner to the idea of the amicus brief for the Supreme Court of Texas to pick up the Mavex versus Texas case. And our brief is now in. Amicus briefs can be added to that case effective immediately. And to that point, a large farmland organization reached out asking to do an amicus. An apartment association reached out this morning, accountant and a CEO, and I expect others to join the list. So we've been hammering on that document. It's now in draft 11 with the idea of being able to distill down the key points for the Supreme Court of Texas to focus in on. And that is the points that Travis has there. The document as it sits right now is about 30 pages. But here are the key points that literally affect every property owner in the state of Texas. And I'm going to go through them fairly quickly. Number one, open courts guarantee whether the Court of Appeals erred by holding that fraud claims against the Central Appraisal District are barred by administrative exclusivity, thereby depriving taxpayers of any judicial remedy for systemic fraud in violation of the constitutional guarantee that courts shall be open and every person shall have a remedy by due course of law. The points that we're making here are the issues that literally affect every property owner in the state of Texas. Due course of law, whether forcing taxpayers to rely exclusively on limited administrative remedies before an appraisal review board, an entity without discovery powers, subpoena authority, or fraud adjudication competence, creates a burden so oppressive as to violate the Supreme Court's own standard in Patel versus the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. To be clear, the Supreme Court of the state of Texas wrote that opinion. Number three, equal and uniform taxation. Whether the systemic use of non-uniform appraisal methods, arbitrary class codes, and extra statutory, in quotes, workarounds that produce grossly disparate valuations of similar properties violates the Texas Constitution's mandate that taxation will be equal and uniform. Number four, takings without compensation. Whether repeated overvaluation of property resulting in the stripping of equity through forced taxation on unrealized gains constitutes a taking of private property for public use without just compensation. Separation of powers. Number five, whether the doctrines of administrative exclusivity and sovereign immunity may constitutionally insulate systemic government fraud from judicial review, thereby denying courts their constitutional role to check executive abuses and protect Texans' property rights. Number six, statewide importance, school financing and bond integrity. whether systemic overvaluation by appraisal districts used to support billions of dollars in school district bonds guaranteed by the Texas Permanent School Fund creates a constitutional crisis of statewide importance under Article 8 taxation requirements and warrants immediate review by the Supreme Court of Texas. These issues are the summary of why the state of Texas and with regard to the Texas Supreme Court should take up the Mavex versus the Texas case. These are the elements that we have been jumping up and down about for the last 10 months. This is the fraud that has been committed on mom and pop. And this is the equity stripping that has resulted in your values going up, but your property ownership going down and your liabilities going up, i.e. the equity stripping. This is what we're asking the Supreme Court to get involved with and remand the case so that all of these elements can be heard and understood. Within a few days, with a little bit of luck, this amicus brief will be fairly close to enough form that we can hand it off and say, okay, Mr. Accountant, if you're interested, here's the backbone for this. Now, do the amicus through your eyes. Same thing with the CEO. And that's what we're doing. We're putting all this together. With a little bit of luck, we'll have something that we can post. But we are asking anybody who wants to write an amicus, please let us know. We're working on it. We'll work with you. We'll help you understand what the case is, but we need the help.
And remember, you guys, this is a pattern and practice that is happening across the nation. Doesn't matter if you're in Ohio or Texas or Florida. If you can help, reach out to us. If you want to be part of the amicus brief, reach out to Mitch. Follow the links in the description. And above all else, have a great evening. And thank you for joining us tonight. And if you guys are out there just trying to live your life, trying to figure things out, you guys already know we wish you luck and we hope you win.